Okay, so yeah, a little bit of logistics, and if you've been here before, this is the umpteenth time you've heard this. We do record this, and we'll send it out after those for those who registered for the recording. We're just a friendly reminder to use the Q&A button on your phone or the Q&A widget, whatever you want to call it, and submit your questions and your responses there. We won't watch the chat a whole bunch. We're mostly going to watch the Q&A, so we for sure won't miss something in the Q&A. So if you please put it there. There was a handful of questions that came in prior to the webinar tonight, so we will definitely hit on those first. And you're not able to see each other, but we're not able to see you either. But we'll get this out in the recording after. Okay, I think that was it.
I think so. So starting with tonight, for those who are regulars, I was unable to attend last month and I missed it a lot.
Oh,
it feels good to be back. And we have some good questions tonight.
Can I comment on that, Alana?
Sure.
Yeah, I know you guys are excited to have Alana back because I heard about it from all my men throughout the week. They're like, "Wow, that sure wasn't the same without Alana this time." I'm like, "You liked it, huh, guys?" So we had some good laughs over it. So yeah, super excited that Alana's back here, and I know there'll be some more value.
Well, it definitely is easier when you have somebody to tag team it with. Also, I know Luke mentioned this, but I'm going to reiterate it, that we tend to get a lot of questions at the end. And so if you have questions, throw them out there. And it does not have to be well thought out. It doesn't have to be really in depth, but if there's something that's been on your mind that it would just be helpful to hear about, please put it out there. So the place that we wanted to start tonight is probably one of the most frequent types of questions that we hear in the recovery journey. And Luke, I'm going to have you start and tackle this. Do you want to just actually read the question?
Sure. Let me just
questions.
I'm going to have to find it, but it's not going to take me very long. Okay, here we go. Okay, so why they were joining was they want to understand more about how the wife, the betrayed partner, can heal, what to expect from a husband as far as the journey from making amends, building trust, and understanding what the wife is going through. And specifically, the part that we were talking about was the helping through the triggers. So helping a wife through triggers, being more empathetic to the wife, making amends, building trust, what questions to ask, and how long would it take was the question. I didn't read.
Well, and it's such a great question. And I think each one of those questions we could probably do a whole hour webinar on. And I will just do a little plug. We, I don't know, it was back in like May or June, did a full hour on just the empathy piece. And so we'll tackle pieces of this, but just know, I mean, you have entire books written on this subject. So where we have an hour, you're going to get more of the condensed version. But with the helping the betrayed partner through their triggers, this is such a painful piece for the couple and for each individual in the couple. And so we want to just give a little tool that both Luke and I will teach around this, and then just talk about some of the logistics of what is the partner who betrayed's role and responsibility? What is the partner who has been betrayed? What is their role and responsibility? And then also just impacts relationally. So we'll cover all of that. So yeah, Luke, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, so I want to start off with this concept. If you're in my men's group, Choose 180, please bear with me, and maybe, hey, you'll learn something that you missed the first time because we went kind of fast.
Or your wife will hear it and she'll go, wait, you've been taught that?
You've been taught that? How come you haven't executed that? Okay, all right. So, all right, here's the first thing I want to start with. Have you ever in your life, I want you to just imagine this. Have you ever in your life had to run into danger? Have you ever had to run somewhere that was dangerous, like run into it, like run into a burning building, run into a place where there's a car accident, run into a place where, well, a car accident isn't necessarily, even though it would for me, maybe not be as big a deal because you know you're not going to get hurt, somewhere where you think you might get hurt or it's dangerous. Okay, so I'm just going to very quickly give an example of one time that this happened to me. And I recognize not everybody responds this way. So if you're one of those people, kind of like Alana, who when danger happens and they just run into it, it's going to be a little bit harder for you. I'm looking for the person that's like me, when I have to run into danger. It's a little bit more of an intense, like don't want to do it, where Alana's geared to like just be in there. But my example was driving home late one night. We lived in a rural place, rural neighborhood, really dark neighborhood. Everybody had bigger lots, so the houses weren't close to each other. Pulled up into my driveway. It was really late at night. Opened the car door, and as I got out of my car door, I heard this female voice, very weak, kind of like in a very eerie way, say, "Help, help me." And I knew it was over at the neighbor's house, and I just like the hair stood up on the back of my neck, like it was intense. And I remember, by the way, I'm totally having a vulnerability hangover, recognizing I don't sound very tough right now. So hair goes up in the back of my neck, and I'm like, okay, I gotta go over there. I don't know what's going on, but I gotta go. I remember every little part of my body as I stood up out of my car and started to move at what I wanted to as a decent speed to go find this person who was saying help, that everything my body was telling me, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And I can still remember the slowness of my body. Like if you have a dream and you're trying to go upstairs and the stairs keep getting steeper, or you just can't run and you're like all jello. So anyway, just so I don't leave you on a cliff, like what the heck happened? It didn't end up being a big deal. She ended up, the woman who was a little bit older lived next to us. She ended up falling, walking between I guess that is a big deal. Sorry. Falling as she walked between houses, and she needed help, and she heard me drive up. So everything was okay, and it worked out just fine. But I just remember the way my body responded. Okay, so if you're going like, Luke, why are you bringing up the story? Because what we're talking about today is responding to triggers. Okay, and what triggers is when your spouse, your wife is having them, or the betrayed is having them. It's like running into danger. Your body tells you, don't go there. Like, don't, this is dangerous. Stay out of the trigger. Like just do, fight back, freeze, run away, but don't go there. So I think about this, and luckily in the tools of recovery that Alana and I have learned, there's some things where I'm like, I can practice them, I'm practicing. And after I practice a whole bunch, I'm still bad at it, but I can start to get better at it over time. So I want to give you a tool for when you run into danger, men, of what to do. And again, Alana, you can back me up on this if you want. As I explain this, and if your husband's never heard of it, just because he gets it and he heard it doesn't mean he's gonna like be a perfect at it the first few times. Okay.
Can I pause you for just a minute?
Please.
Because I want to be really clear. And I don't want you to come off as insensitive. The betrayed partner, their body is responding with fight, flight, or freeze. They're having a trauma response. And that can be so intense. And it's not something that's chosen. I've never met a betrayed partner who is choosing to actively want to be in pain. Usually it's like, how do I make this trigger stop? I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me. Just tell me, how do I make the trigger stop? So we have that piece. But then you also just talked about, Luke, the partner who has betrayed and has to repair, and is ideally, if we're talking relationally, wants to repair, and them going into a situation with their partner who is very triggered, that can bring up for them some of those feelings of resistance and how do I do this? And their own fear gets triggered. Now, I don't at all want to compare these apples to apples, because that would be very, I don't know.
Sensitive.
Yeah, demoralizing and sensitive to the level of trauma that a betrayed partner goes through. I don't want to put them apples to apples. And it's really important that we don't sugarcoat how difficult and hard it is for the partner who has betrayed to go into these situations and engage. And it's really essential that they learn how to do this, because if they don't learn how to go into danger, because their brain is going to register her being super escalated, her coming at with me with daggers, that can feel very scary and dangerous relationally to engage in that. But if they don't learn how to do that, we can't have the relationship as a couple heal. So this is a skill. And I say skill, meaning we can learn to do this, but this is a skill that we have to learn how to practice and develop.
I'm glad you said that, Alana, because I think that foundationally that was pretty important to bring up at the beginning. And I like the word to use the word, don't want me to come across as insensitive, because I almost think about it like apples and oranges, the two types of experiences that are going on over there. Because betrayal is one thing, and that from trauma-based is totally another. And then this man trying to be open and create space and be open about what his experience is. It's a different experience. And for both people, it's emotion filled and difficult. So
this type of work, this type of couples work on repairing after infidelity is some of the hardest emotional work you'll ever do in your life.
yeah.
I won't sugarcoat that. It really is. And if you're willing to do the work, it can be some of the most rewarding benefits of it. But I will just say it will come much longer and later than what you hope and anticipate.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Go back into it, Alana.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, this is what we do is we talk about present, and we go from present, and this is the tool. Okay. So going from present to past to future is what you're going to hear me do. So I'm going to just make up literally right now on the spot. It won't be made up on the spot. It'll be somewhat real from Alana and I's past. I'm just going to think about hiring a female salesperson. How's that sound, Alana? Does that work? Okay. So we've had this in our past, the beginning stages of the journey, me being in a career, making horrible choices when it came to my interactions with the opposite sex. And then going on in my career for the first time ever, and firsts are ugly. Firsts are so hard. Effing first. Okay. So first time I decide to hire a female sales rep. Alana has a serious big response to that. And what I mean by serious response is she has a betrayal trauma response. And the way, Alana, do you want me to describe this, or do you want to describe this? Do you want to tag team this part, or do you want me to continue to do it?
Sure. I'm trying to go back to that particular event, but in the beginning, everybody felt threatening. Every female felt threatening, specifically, or men who maybe might influence Luke in negative ways. They felt threatening. So everything felt threatening, and threatening in a way of like, I was legitimately scared. I was so scared because I didn't have any foundation of trust in the relationship. And so everything felt like we were like one step away from just everything falling apart. And you have this deep attachment wound, and now there's this deep attachment insecurity in the relationship. And so when he had somebody that he was going to hire, and I remember him saying, "Hey, Alana, I need to let you know." First, it was, I'm going to interview this candidate, and it is female. And that brought up lots and lots of feelings. Um, and I did my work. I worked through them. And then it was, and in your type of work, Luke, lots of women came through and applied, lots of men came through and applied, but only some were hired. And it had been a while since a female was hired. So when he called and he said, "Hey, I just want to let you know, this female is very qualified and I am going to move forward with her in the position. And my boss is wanting her to move forward in the position. And looks like we're going to make the offer." And that all of a sudden, the trigger that came from that, I can't think of a better word other than it just shut me down. It like everything, like walls between him and I just shot up emotionally. I probably went to freeze. Like I just went really numb, really shut down. And it felt so scary because here's this individual who's now going to be working closely with him. And again, like every like warning danger thing is going off in my body. And it it felt like, oh my word, can our relationship handle this? Like we've been through all of this. And there's multiple triggers that was my thought. Would this be the straw that broke the camel's back? Can our relationship handle this? And so in this moment, I'm shut down. I have massive walls. I'm pushing Luke away. Not only am I pushing him away, I'm just going to go off past triggers. I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure there was some pretty nasty daggers coming your way in the middle of all this based off of my history. It was.
You know, and so in that moment, and this is what I talk about when in danger is all of a sudden I go from being really empathetic to like, this is going to be really hard on Alana, to her sharing words with me about how this is affecting her and all that stuff. And okay, so here's the tool: presence. Okay, I don't run. I acknowledge what's actually happening in that moment. And I say, I can see right now that, and I state what I see. I can see there's a big trigger coming up. I can see that you're angry that I'm hiring another person. I can see that, and I state what I see. And then I ask, is that accurate? Now, I don't want to ask that. I don't want to ask that at all. Because what am I inviting? I'm inviting more of the same. Okay. But it's really, really important that I invite and show up and ask more for more of the same. Okay.
Can I speak why that's so important for a
Yeah.
second?
Yeah.
We are wired as humans to want to be seen and understood. Like that's hardwired into who we are. And so when this trigger is happening and he acts like he doesn't see it and he acts like it's not happening, all that is adding more pain to what's happening. And it's still painful to talk about it. But when he can see me and he can slow down and he can lean into that discomfort, because the reality is I'm dying inside. And when I'm dying inside and he says, I see that you're hurting. I see you. There's power in that.
So I get a chance to say, I see you, and I get asked, is that accurate? I get a chance to ask for what she's experiencing. Okay. So this is the presence. Okay. And then what happens is she responds, and it might be with more of the same. It might be less. There might be less. It might be not as heavy. I don't know. But what I do is I immediately go to the past and I say, Alana, that makes perfect sense. And this isn't, this is me, values-based words, because I recognize that the reason these triggers are actually happening is because of my past choices. Okay. So I go, Alana, this makes a lot of sense based upon the choices that I've made in the past, specifically hiring and not being appropriate with female coworkers or female employees. So, and the fact that I'm hiring another one, I can totally, actually, I'm, noticing my words right now. I can see why this is coming up and this is so scary. But specifically tying the present of what is happening right now back into the past, because that's what's happening for Alana, right? She's having to go through that experience. Me, what I'm doing? I'm focused on the future, how I'm never going to make that mistake again, right? She's tying it to the past of going, how is my world going to fall apart again?
And she's not choosing to rehash the past. Like that's something that I see sometimes a partner who's betrayed get kind of stuck in of like, why does she keep bringing up the past, or why do they keep bringing up the past? Why do they do this? Well, because the past that's in the past, you've heard me say this many times if you've listened to me, is in the past, but the past that's showing up today is your present. And so where there has been active betrayal in the relationship and the betrayal hasn't been healed yet, then it very much is part of the safety of today's present. And so the betraying partner who has betrayed, I have got to figure out better terms to make it simpler.
You're doing great.
But for the partner who has betrayed, for them to be able to slow down and see how the past is impacting them today really creates really creates safety in the present moment. And very rarely do I see couples really master this skill without a lot of practice. And sometimes even like holding a little piece of paper with this cheat sheet that says past, present, future, past, present, future. Because, and this is what I want to highlight, Luke, if you don't mind talking about your experience with this.
Mm-hmm.
But in the moment of the present, to do this type of work, you have to be pretty mentally calm and grounded yourself. Like if she's escalated because she's triggered and you're spinning because you're worried about her being triggered, then your brain is not going to be online enough to be able to do this type of work. So I think this is where, and we'll go into this after you finish the skill, but I think this is why it's so important that we have the individuals and we kind of highlight some of their own individual work to be able to do some of this relational work we're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so that past is owned, and how it's affecting the present, how it is the present, and then being able to go into the future, okay, and not too quickly, because that's what I wanted to focus on at the very beginning, right? My whole everything that's going through my head when I'm what's going on with Alana's trigger or just the experience in general is focusing on the future. I'm going to make all the right choices, not going to do that stuff again. Now, after I went from the present to the past, now I can focus on the future, which is my commitment, which is Alana. I completely own this. And I just want to tell you whether this is something that makes sense to you or not, or you can believe right now or not, I am committed to our relationship. I am committed to my recovery and the journey that I've set in process here. And I am also committed to these triggers and the things that they come up and being able to be here as you feel them and the transparency that goes along with this whole experience. So the future is just a statement on where I'm at and where I am in my relationship. So often, because it's, and forgive me, ladies, because it feels like danger men going in there and holding space for triggers. It doesn't really make a lot of sense that we'd be stating our commitments, because it feels like the person that's angry at us doesn't really want the fact that for us to tell them that we're committed to the relationship and the recovery and all the stuff, but that's not true. Share the commitment, even if it's not like acknowledged and received. Okay, it's your truth. Oh, and with no expectations. Okay, Alana, I actually wanted it to be a whole lot simpler than that. So y'all, I hope that as we went through present, past, and future, And as you listen to the recording, you can pull those tools into your life. And now, Alana, let's go into what you were going to talk about. Which part did you want me to hit on?
Well, what I want to talk about is what is the betrayed's work to do here? What is the partner who has been betrayed? What is their work to do? And then what we just talked about is kind of the relational work, because it's really interesting. It's this work can be so parallel in many ways and then so individualized and separate in other ways. And so being able to break it down, because the reality is as a partner who has been betrayed, there are certain things that I am responsible for. No matter how much Luke wants to show up and hold my pain and get it right and be helpful, as much as he wants to do those things, there are certain parts of my healing that he could never fix, that he could not do for me. And I'll just tell you, that really pissed me off for a really long time, because I wanted him 100% to own it, 100% to fix it. And honestly, the fact that I found myself having to heal and do the work of something that I didn't choose, it felt very unfair. And the reality is it is unfair. And I still had the responsibility of my own healing to do. I wish Hallie was here, because Hallie has this great quote. And if somebody knows how the quote goes, but something along the lines of, the trauma is not your fault, but healing is your responsibility, something along those lines. And so my work, I cannot talk. Thank you for being patient with me. My work looked like learning how to emotionally get re-regulated, because trauma causes massive emotional dysregulation. Like your brain literally changes with trauma. And so I had to learn how to get emotionally regulated again. I had to learn how to listen to my body. I had to learn how to honor my feelings and have a voice in them, but also do it in a way that was still in line with my own values. Attacking Luke verbally, throwing things at Luke, trying to hit him, those things are not in my values. That's not how I respond. But trauma also brought out sides of me I didn't even know existed. So that was my responsibility to learn how to process my feelings, process my triggers, make decisions for me, own what choices that I have to make, regulate my feelings. I had to learn how to come out of isolation. Amy Woolsey and I, we have a podcast called Choose to Be, and we talk a lot about what the betrayed healing looks like. But those were some of the things that I had to do that Luke couldn't do for me. But then his work, he still has to, and I'm going to throw some out really quick, Luke, and then I'm going to turn it over to you to jump in. But he has to learn how to hold my pain and lean in to my triggers. He has to learn how to get himself emotionally grounded. He has to work through his own emotional triggers, his sexual triggers, his physical triggers. He has to learn how to start working through and emotionally processing, because so much of addiction is mismanagement of emotions. And if we're talking about infidelity without addiction, we're talking a lot of times of massive boundary issues and lots of value issues. So he's got to do work around that. And so each partner is doing their own work. And then collectively, we have the relationship that also has its healing.
Yeah.
What did I miss there?
I don't think you missed anything. I think it was pretty solid. You know, and it evolves, y'all. Like it evolves over time, you know. Holding space for Alana, you know, and not needing her to show up any certain way in the beginning, and staying present was everything that I was learning to do. Later on, And big asterisk here. Later on, I had to start learning what my own boundaries were looking like. What that relationship looked like for us, where I should learn to have a voice, where it was appropriate for me to have a voice. And it just evolves. It's not black and white. I don't think you missed anything, Alana.
Well, in some of these questions that have come in the Q&A, I think are really good, that I want to highlight because they go deeper into what we're talking about. And so this question, when the betrayed partner puts zero effort into recovery healing, no effort to control their triggers, when can these trauma-based triggers, reactions be acknowledged as abuse, assuming the betrayer is doing their work? So that is a really, really good question and a tricky question because, yeah, it's such a tricky question. I'm going to answer it of it depends. It looks so individualized. Whether I'm talking about the betrayed or the partner who has been betrayed, we can't control what other people choose to do or not do. So I can't make Luke work his recovery. He can't make me work my recovery. And it comes back to, if my partner chooses to not work their recovery, then what will I do with that? What is in my values? What is right for me? So if Luke today says, you know what, Alana, I'm done working my recovery. I don't want to do this. This is too hard. Then all of a sudden I get to choose, okay, can I stay in a relationship with somebody who is doing this or this? And if the answer is, I don't like it, but yeah, I can stay with them. Okay, so if I'm going to stay in this relationship and this is the way it's going to be, then what do I need to do for me so I can continue to thrive in my situation, in my life, in my environment? But I have, for whoever put this, it's anonymous, for whoever put this, I have so much empathy for both of you. I have empathy for the betrayed partner because I hear so much pain, because where it says no effort to control their triggers, that means I hear, oh, we got lots of trigger and so much pain. And I hope for their sake that they can find a way and find some healing so they don't have to be in pain. And you can offer things, you can suggest things, but ultimately it has to be their choice. And that's hard and it sucks. And for the partner who has betrayed, who really does have that desire to help the relationship heal, and there is frustration and feelings of helplessness where you feel like I can't do it alone, I have empathy for that too, because when we're talking about relational healing, it takes two. You as an individual can heal and progress. Relational healing does take two people who are working on the relationship, and that's difficult. And I have empathy for, because I know many of you come here where it's just you working on it, and that's hard. Whether you're the betrayed or the betrayer, it's hard.
And I do believe that when one person gets really, really healthy, it causes change, whether it's the other person sees it and doesn't want to get left behind, or the other person goes, and also it gives the other person the ability to be able to get stronger. Hold on, I don't like the way that I'm explaining this. So in the journey, there was several times that Alana started to get really, really healthy, and it became very, very uncomfortable for me in ways that it didn't make sense why she was requesting what she was requesting. Remember one time we went for a walk at night, she said, Luke, I actually have a deal killer for our marriage that's not about cheating on me or masturbation pornography. It's you not being emotionally available. And I was not happy about that at all, because I'm like, when is it ever going to be enough? It's a moving target. Victim mindset when she gave me that. And what I noticed though was, as Alana has got healthier, it seemed like it was not easier. Alana, what's the right way to put it? You didn't have as many struggles setting down firm boundaries around what healthy was like, even if it meant me being left behind and the marriage ending. So I think that there's some people that continue to work their path. Change can happen for the other person in a couple different ways.
Yeah, because what you're talking about is you're talking about the impact. And the reality is we always are impacting each other, whether we want to or not. We can't decide how that impact will land. But the minute somebody starts changing, they are already impacting the relationship, good or bad.
Yeah. Which one of these questions do you want to tackle next, Alana?
This one, in your hiring a woman example, how do you handle it when both partners aren't so dedicated to the recovery? If the betrayer isn't holding that pain and or responds with frustration, or if the betrayed partner can't acknowledge their pain without going into extreme verbal or even physical escalation. Can we break that into two? Can you
Yeah.
answer just the first half and then we'll do the second half?
Yeah, I was gonna say that was me. So I was my one of the things Alana had a really big issue with that I didn't see there was an issue at all. She's, was the me going to lunch with female coworkers or subordinates. It was just me and that other person. And I was kind of like, geez, this is like part of my job. Um, I don't know. There's nothing really I can do about this. This isn't something that I'm okay with. And it took not her, but it was her boundaries, but also a really good therapist that was able to help me understand and see my faulty thinking in that. So professional boundaries were the ones that took, and it took me a little while. This was not like one conversation because I was holding my guns on this one. I was like, this is a part of my job. So it was interesting how it evolved. Any comments on that, Alana?
Well, it's just interesting because as you're talking, I think, I think there are a lot of professional relationships that you can have. People of the opposite sex have healthy work lunches together. But because of our history and because of the choices Luke made, it was not safe for him or for me to have that. And I couldn't control whether he chose to do that or not. I had no power over that. But I could say that based off of our history, I'm not comfortable being in a relationship with somebody who actively is still making those choices based off of our history. And so I did have boundaries around that. And there, yeah, I had my boundaries of what I would do for me. And it wasn't, you stop doing them and I'm divorcing you. That's an ultimatum. And that wasn't the level of boundary I had, but it was, I'm not comfortable with this and I don't feel safe with this. And I don't feel like I can engage with you at a deeper emotional level when we have such difference in values in this area. And so I can't engage relationally right now. I need to figure out what I need for me, and getting closer doesn't feel safe. And so I had to do my work around that. I had to do my own boundaries. I had to do processing. And then Luke worked with his therapist on that. So, and I'll just again, just reiterate, when the person who has betrayed is not able to hold the pain of the betrayed spouse, it's very, 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 very painful for the partner who has been betrayed. And learning how to hold that pain is a skill that usually requires some level of intervention and help. Not always. And in the cases where they can and they can show up and hold the pain, that's wonderful. But more often than not, I see a lot of partners who don't know how to do that, or they get triggered with their own family of origin stuff or their own insecurities or their own attachment stuff coming up. And so I highly, highly suggest getting in a group that can offer support with that and individual work. I say individual, but I mean either individual or individual as in couple work with a therapist one-on-one, one-on-two.
Do you want the second half of that, or will you tackle it?
Yeah, the second half, or if the betrayed partner can't acknowledge their pain without going into extreme verbal or even physical escalation. Okay, so this one, if you've heard Luke and I very long, there were times where I was extremely verbal and physical with Luke. And Luke had to have his own boundaries with that. And that was healthy for both of us. He didn't love my boundaries and I didn't love his boundaries. But us having certain levels of what we are okay with and are not okay with, and knowing what those are and having those be value-based and having those be decided when we're not in the heat of the moment, that was really healthy for our relationship.
Yeah. And putting down boundaries is painful. Very painful. You wonder if you're going to lose a relationship when you put down a healthy boundary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Vicki Tidwell Palmer, she wrote the book, The 5-Step Boundary Solution. She also has a podcast called Beyond Bitchy. It's about boundaries. She said, or maybe this was Henry Cloud who said this, but they said boundaries give your relationship a chance to work. But we don't know, like the boundaries give it a chance to be healthy and to thrive. But without the boundaries, then we don't actually know where the relationship stands. The boundaries give it a chance to thrive. Also, just a quick plug on boundaries. Boundaries are not to control your partner. Boundaries are just simply, what am I willing to accept in a relationship for myself? And it's knowing where we stand as an individual. And so it's not about me saying, Luke, you have to do this or this. It's, these are the things that I need in a relationship. And if my partner chooses not to, because they get to choose not to, then here's what I'm going to do for myself. And if you want to know more about boundaries, so many good podcasts on boundaries and infidelity. So do research. And boundary work took me months, months and months and months and months and months to really get my head wrapped around them.
It's very gray on your way in, and it becomes more black and white once you've gotten farther through it, being able to see what healthy is through boundaries. Okay.
Black or white, but more clarity.
Yeah. Yeah, more clarity. There you go. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, by the way, the recording will be available. Just it'll automatically be followed up to anybody that's registered. I had a couple people ask about that. Which one's next? A lot of you to have a preference on which one?
Yeah. This one, it says, when I am triggered and my husband reminds me that, okay. And my husband reminds me that he isn't going to do it again. My natural response is, but you did do it and you did hurt me. And I'm still dealing with the pain of your betrayal. How do I get of that? How do I get out of feeling that response and accepting his help and recovery? Okay. Love this question. And I want to give you permission to let that part of you have those feelings. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to live there and it has to be a whole part of you. Think of like Inside Out, we have our little parts. But there's this part that he says, I am with you. I'm not going to do it again. And your brain pushes back. Well, that pushback is natural. That pushback says, I trusted you for all this time, and that trust was destroyed. So it makes sense. And this is what I want you saying to yourself. Like, it makes sense that I'm still feeling hurt. It makes sense that I'm still working through the betrayal. And it makes sense why it's hard to not just have that instantly restored. And side note, your brain is hardwired to push back on this until you have had enough safety created consistently that it starts to feel safe to override that betrayal. And so with that being said, being so compassionate with yourself, okay, it makes sense that this part of me is still struggling. It makes sense that I'm not over it yet, and I want to be. So we can validate this part, and then we can also validate, and here's the things I am seeing him do right now. I am questioning it and I'm still in pain. And this is for those who have had some safety created. And I am seeing him holding my pain, and I appreciate that. And I'm still in pain. And I'm seeing him do his recovery work, and he's doing dailies. And I'm still in pain. And we start to make room for these to sit side by side with each other. And then with time, ideally, as that safety keeps getting more and more created with consistency, then that will start becoming a louder voice. But it's okay that they both sit side by side. That makes sense.
Yeah. And I just think about I want to speak to the wife here, the person that was betrayed. The reason why he wants to focus so much on that he's not going to do it again is because he hates so much to acknowledge the choices that he's made. It's so painful for him to be able to sit there and go, yeah, I mean, I hurt you. And yeah, I recognize I hurt you. And yes, I did hurt you. And yeah, what I did hurt you, I can see that, like, over and over and over again. It's just because it's so painful. And a lot of men will go like, yeah, of course that's painful. Why would anybody want to do that? I'm telling you, the men that are really healthy, that are working it the right way, they develop the emotional resilience and they untie themselves from their choices, and they can say that again and again. Okay. And I'm telling you, like, what's that?
That's part of restitution.
Yeah, it's part of restitution to sit there with them. And Alana, can you maybe clean this up a little bit, because you're the person that went through it? And I'm gonna say this is, I feel like not all the time, but a good portion of the time, the reason she's bringing it up over and over again is because she doesn't feel heard or seen about what's actually happened. But if he does a really solid job allowing her to be heard and seen and not running from it, she doesn't feel the need to voice it the same as she used to, or as frequently, if she does her work, if she's doing her work. Okay, you just got really excited, Alana, I can tell.
Okay. So I was in a training one time. This had nothing to do with betrayal or trauma, but it was a training for EFT, emotionally focused therapy. And they were talking about how at a biological level, our bodies can feel when somebody is really with us and what they're saying is accurate and true and heartfelt. So they called it, I forget the term they used, but they called it like a heartfelt level. And our bodies, like they've hooked people up to sensors, and our bodies respond, like our breathing slows down, our heart rate decreases, we become calmer. And this is all subconscious. Like our body does it when we feel like somebody with us really sees us and gets us and understands it. So I have some men who have learned, or individuals who have betrayed, who have learned all of the right words, but they don't have the feeling behind it and they're not sincere in it. And guess what? It doesn't land. It doesn't stick. She, at a biological level, can feel when he really means it and when he is with her and when he's just repeating the words. And so what you're talking about, Luke, is so accurate. And again, this requires the partner who has betrayed to be able to do this work so they themselves can mean it.
So,
they themselves can show up real and authentic.
okay, so I got a question for you.
Connection. Yeah.
I got a question. You thinking about the million times that I said something and didn't. Okay, so I'm going through this experience, like, where I really want to, I want to say the right words, and I know what the right words, and I'm afraid that if I say them, they won't come across the right way because I'm just not in that purely empathetic spot. Maybe it's time, maybe it's just emotional capacity. So you've heard me you've heard me do it both ways. So can you comment on that? Like, do you want me to not talk at all if I can't do it empathetically? Do you want me to give it my best? Do you want me to wait till I'm ready? Like, what do you want me to, what do you need? What do you want?
It depends. And I don't want to answer that, because I will tell you, every single woman who's in here listening, or betrayed partner who's in here listening, it might be different. And so I don't want people taking notes of like, oh, Alana said this is the way we're supposed to do it. But what I do want and what I encourage my couples is that communication. So if you were to come to me, Luke, and you were to say, I really want to show up and I really want to hold your pain. And I don't think I can do that right now in the way that you deserve that. I'd probably be really annoyed. I wouldn't love that. And I would appreciate that, because I remember specifically one time sticking out. We were sitting in front of a Starbucks, just in the car and talking. And I had a trigger. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember you, Luke, you said, and I know the phrase because you've used it many times and it's helped many times, but this time you said, I can see how your pain right now is because of my past choices. And I'm really sorry that you're in pain. But I could feel that there was no empathy in that. And I could feel that he wasn't with me. I won't swear, but the thought that went through my head is like, F you. Like, don't even say that if you don't mean that or you don't feel that. And so that like brought in my bodyguard. And if you can tell tonight, like I have a pretty strong and passionate bodyguard who knows how to do her job really well.
What's her name? Do you have her name for her?
Mm-mm.
So here's the thing. So this is what I was talking about. I was actually thinking the Starbucks experience. Okay. So you said it depends. It depends.
Well,
And I'm thinking about the men here in this call right now, scanning down through the names. I'm thinking of the ones going like, I don't know. I'm thinking about double binds, right? I'm thinking about, I don't know how to show up. I want to show up, but if I don't feel authentic in my response, can I tell you what I think here, Alana? Is that okay?
but right there, isn't that authenticity? Like what you just said of like, I want to show up and I don't know how, because what she wants is real. What she wants is truth. And so if your truth is I want to show up and I can't, and she can feel that that's true, that is still helpful.
Yeah.
Shutting down, blocking her out, not talking to her, or showing up aggressively, defensively, those will harm.
So here's what I think about. There's this phrase when we talk about trust, and a guy wants trust back. A woman wants, ultimately would love to be able to trust. When we talk about trust having to be rebuilt and not restored, that's a phrase we use. I think this is where trust is rebuilt. These conversations. We think trust is rebuilt by not making mistakes, but I don't think that's the majority of where it happens. It's leaning into the really, really hard conversations. It's getting it wrong, but attempting to get it right, but being empathetic and cleaning up our messes. I guess I want everybody on this call to feel some hope and recognize where the healing happens. The healing happens in the where the blood and the tears and the sweat happens of the real conversations, the working through it. It's not in just the perfect choices. So, anyway, I think there was a little bit of a soapbox right there, Alana.
That's okay. That was a good soapbox. I'll let you have it. A question was asked on how does tying the trigger in the present to the past really be helpful? Like, why is that helpful?
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just what was said before, but I want to highlight it. Your present is your past. Here we go. Your past is her present when triggers are happening. Okay, I'm just going to say it one more time. I'm going to get it right one more time. Your past is her present. Okay, so you have to tie them together with words. And you have to say those words. You have to allow her to talk about what you just said, so she can be seen and heard. That's why.
And I love that someone posted to us. They said, the past not healed lives in the present. That's so accurate. And that's accurate whether we're talking like relationally, we're talking family of origin stuff. That is very accurate.
Yeah, and somebody else just put, it was just a chat message, says, I feel like it would be a good idea to reassure them that you want to come back to it when you can feel you can show up. So that's another tool we use. I call it Kazushi, which is just the ability to be able to step out, regain my emotional resilience as a man, and come back to the conversation on my own and do it, because now I have the emotional resilience to do so. Yeah, because it's not always possible in the moment. What else do we have here, Alana? Oh, but he did ask you a question. It says, Alana, when you did your work, what does that mean? The triggers, what do you do what do you do to do your work when those triggers come up? Did you kind of hit that?
I did. I
Okay.
did. That was where I talked about learning how to process, emotionally regulate, listen to my body, all of that type of stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So we did the last one, Luke. So we only have one more question, which is kind of right on par for time. That's good. Okay. If you do have any questions, though, throw them in now so we can make sure we get to them before we wrap up. So, my husband and I are separated as a therapeutic separation. He is working his recovery, and I am trying to heal. We aren't really having contact now. How can I know when we'll be ready to have in person contact? I'm struggling with my mind, still wondering if he really loves me and if he is really changing. But how can I know if he is really changing and loves me if we aren't in contact with each other? Um, good questions. First of all, did you want to tackle this, Luke? Okay, I'll let you start.
Yeah. Your intuition, person who put this, your intuition is really, really solid. Okay. Really, really good. So I believe at a very limited interaction you have, you will be able to feel or sense improvement or safety, because you've had a long history with this man. Okay. So you'll be able to see it even if it's from a far distance, change, or at least willing to lean back into new parts of the relationship, or leaning back into the relationship. So just have confidence in yourself that even though there's distance, because I'll tell you, this is what the number one thing I was thinking, which was when Alana and I went through our separation, is this is horrible because she won't be able to see all the good things that I'm doing. And I really need her to see the good things. And that was the exact reason why separation was important, is so I'd stop focusing on her and worry about how she was seeing all the good things, that I just did the good things for me and to recover. And that's why it's so important. Alana, what did I miss?
Well, you said something where you said your intuition is solid. And I will just speak, so many of my betrayed partners, you question your intuition, you question your knowing. There are so many times that I've heard women say, and myself, of I had learned to turn that off because that was sending me all sorts of signals I didn't like and felt uncomfortable with and didn't have any proof of anything. So I learned to shut that part of me down. And so your intuition is still there. It's still built into you. So if you don't feel like it's solid, or you don't feel like it's strong, or you don't feel like you're knowing everything, be so patient with yourself of relearning to engage that part of you. And it's okay to question your intuition. And there are times that my intuition will give me information that I'll go, I don't know what to do with this yet. So I'm just going to put that in my pocket. And I'm talking maybe with Luke, but also with other people or with clients or with something that comes up that I go, noticing something, but I don't have all the answers. So I'm just going to kind of notice that, and I'm going to save it. And then I might use that or not, but practice and be okay with learning to, for that part of you to come back online more, because a lot of times that gets shut down. And then I am comforted that you said that it is a therapeutic separation. And I'm hoping that means that you have a therapist involved, because having a therapist who can guide that separation and have this plan of here's where we're headed and here's how we're coming back together and here's the point of us having a separation. If we're just separating to separate and there's no actual here's my plan and here's your plan and here's our reunification plan, that's not necessarily maybe a timeline, but these are the things that we are going to be working on as we start to come back together. Those type of things to help guide that process can be really helpful too. Okay, so a question just came in and I felt myself have a little reaction to this. And I had a reaction because my bodyguard wants to protect this person who sent this in. The question is, how do you handle it when your partner says you're crazy when you're triggered? My heart breaks a little bit for the person who posted this because when you are triggered, you feel a little crazy. And the thing that would be most helpful in that trigger is for people around you to not further shame you or emotionally abuse you. That's the type of emotional abuse, is people telling you you're crazy. To not be attacked for that trigger, but instead be shown support and love and compassion. That would be the ideal. So if I am in a place that I am super triggered and my partner can't handle that, whether they're coming at me, whether they're saying I'm crazy, whether they're shutting down, however they're responding, that's not helpful or is flat out harmful, then I have to create safety for myself. And safety for me would not be engaging in conversations with people when I am escalated and triggered and they're not safe. And really, probably really limiting my engagement unless I was super grounded and I could handle that with however much time I could handle it. But I want to give so much love to the person who asked that question, because if I could give you what not to do, it would: do not tell your partner they're crazy when they are working through a trauma trigger. Do you want to add anything to that, Luke? Please add something to that.
Probably just an apology to you for the fact of when you've had triggers in the past, and you feel that I recognize that's, the reason you even are responding that way is because of the choices that I've made. So you wouldn't even have to be having that experience if it wasn't for my choices. So, and same thing for that woman. So appreciate you all a lot. And thank you so much for the kind words. You guys are always so kind to just say nice things as Alana and I go through and talk about this stuff. So appreciate you guys' participation this evening, the questions before, and just love hanging out with you. So anything else, Alana, before we go?
No, I think that's good. It's funny because I find myself, so as you know, Luke is a men's mental health coach. I work as a therapist, and it's a fine line between working as professionals and then sharing some of our personal stuff. And the feedback that we have gotten time and time again is from these webinars that we do monthly in particular, that it's helpful when we share more of the personal. And as a professional, opening that up and sharing some of that personal is not always easy. It's a really fine line to walk. And I just appreciate, each of you for being in this work. If you're here tonight, it shows that you do want to learn and you do want to grow. And I wish for each of you that you do continue in your healing. And I hope and pray that this was helpful in that healing. And yes, if you have any questions that you want for future weeks, then please send them in.
And ones that are just popping in, we'll make sure we build them into our next time too. So
yep.
We will make sure those get saved. So All right. Thank you all. Have a good evening, and we will talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, night. Bye.